For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now. With Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours to talk about the Winnipeg Jets. Hang on. I'm getting breaking news into my earpiece. The Bombers have scored another touchdown. That's just what happened. The Bombers have scored another touchdown. 55 wasn't enough. They wanted to go up to 62. So that's just breaking news on this early on this Saturday morning. Ezzy, you were there with our friend Zach Schnitzer from Bonfire Sports. So it looked like it was a pretty fun night out at the old ballpark yesterday.
It was a good old-fashioned butt whooping is what it was.
Yeah, it was.
Great.
That was a big old-fashioned butt whooping. When the game's over by halftime, you know that things are going well for the hometown team. Unfortunately for the Winnipeg Jets, you can probably say not so well for them. It's been a week of injuries. They lost last night in Minnesota. Connor Hellebuck was lit up for, I believe, 7 goals against. We don't need to delve too deep into the results.
Eight goals against, for the record.
8 goals against. I even gave him a little bit of a bonus. That shows
who cares. It's preseason. It means
exactly.
Nothing.
I don't pay attention in the preseason. Don't read too much into it. You don't think that the Oilers are panicking because Stuart Skinner gave up however many he gave up earlier. Was that 5 earlier in the week when the Jets took care of business on home ice? Don't read too much into results from the preseason. The Jets off the ice today. It's a day off for the team as the sort of the grind of training camp keeps going, although we would expect some cuts and some changes to the group to occur within the next 24 to 48 hours, all of which will be covered in its entirety on illegalcurve.com. But like we did last week, we have to start with the defense because another injury for an already thin Winnipeg Jets defense, this time with Logan Stanley undergoing surgery for a meniscus injury. He's going to be out of the lineup at least for the next 4 weeks. We know Ville Heinola's out of the lineup. He underwent surgery this week as well. They removed the screw from the surgically repaired ankle after he suffered that injury last year. So the story continues to be injuries on the Jets back end, Mr. Ginsburg.
The Illegal Curve Medical Report is brought to you by Play Now Manitoba. No, that was good, Drew. I mean, no, this is not how the Jets wanted, this part of training camp to go. They didn't want, the preseason to look like this. And you've got the 2 defensemen battling for that third pairing left side role, right? So, I mean, obviously, guys, Hayden Fleury is right now your third pairing left side defenseman, right? Like it's like next man up is Hayden Fleury, right? And that's why, back in the summer, I think that those signings happened, if I'm not mistaken, a few days after July 1st. And we were talking about these like Hayden Fleury, Dylan Coghlan, that's why you go out and you sign these guys, right, Dave? Like not just because you want these guys to play for the Moose, but in the event of injuries, you want to have NHL defensemen ready to step in. And Fleury's got, well over 200 games of NHL experience. Coghlan's got less than that, a little bit over 100 games of NHL experience. But you know that you can put these guys in the lineup. And so as it stands right now, boys, I think you'd say Coghlan is your 7th defenseman. And we didn't really, see that, before Heinola and Stanley go down with injuries, he's kind of like, 9th on the depth chart, right? But with these injuries, it means a guy like Hayden Fleury is going to get a great opportunity. And just as an aside, guys, I love the fact, because we haven't done a live show since this happened, but I love the fact that Hayden Fleury's wife gives birth to their son, and then he had the option of playing or not playing. And the reason why he said he wanted to play was because he thought it would be cool to play on the day his son was born. So I'm forgetting his son's name right now, but I love that. That's a true hockey player right there, Drew.
It's the weirdest thing, though. When I wanted to play after my son was born, that night, Laura said no. I can't figure out why that was the case. I mean, I don't know why there's a double standard in this situation. But you're right, Ezzy. That is sort of a hockey player's story, and a cool moment for the Fleury family. And Hayden said he'd always be able to tell his son that the day you were born, I went out and I played a game just in to commemorate your birth and to sort of bring that all together in a package. So that was a nice story. Those little things, those little stories are sometimes what gets you through training camp, what gets you through the grind of the preseason. But you're right about your bulk of your point there, Ezzy, is that Hayden Fleury, a guy who was expected to come into this season as maybe, press box bound or Manitoba Moose bound, now has a glorious opportunity in front of him, Dave, to try and solidify a back end for the Winnipeg Jets that really needs to discover some found money. I mean, that's what they need. They need a diamond in the rough to come up and sort of be a catalyst there that keeps everything together, because it was going to be a thin unit with a lot of questions, even with a healthy Heinola and a healthy Stanley. Now guys are on the shelf, the questions only become louder, and the Winnipeg Jets need somebody like Hayden Fleury, a guy who's certainly been up and down throughout his career. I mean, his first significant NHL experience was 7 years ago, 17-18 with the Carolina Hurricanes. And the year before that, he played the majority of the season with the Charlotte Checkers of the AHL. So he's a grizzled veteran at this point of his career, but he's also a guy who's staring a golden opportunity in the face.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talk about whenever we're talking about training camp. And how many times did we say, even on last week's show, it's hard for us to talk about what's going to happen in 2.5 weeks when the season begins, because we don't even know what's going to happen, in the next few days. And we know now what happened in the next few days is that Ville Heinola had to go under the knife to have his ankle looked at again and have the hardware removed. And then you had Logan Stanley, who, remember, guys, Logan Stanley was in the morning skate on Wednesday getting ready to face the Oilers. He was supposed to be in the lineup. And all of a sudden, when I was there at Canada Life to take in our first game of the season for us in the illegal curve spot, I got to tell you, I'm sitting there going, oh, well, Simon Lundmark's on the ice. He wasn't expected to play. He was supposed to be, just an extra guy. And yet there he is, and no Logan Stanley. So you think, okay, he did something. And sure enough, we hear that he tweaked something. And that head coach Scott Arniel said on Thursday, but then and he said after the media availability that it was not good. So you knew it was a little more significant than he just tweaked something. And then sure enough, he needed surgery, and it was a meniscus issue, which Scott Arniel said he could understand. He had it 3 times done in his playing career. So, before we move on to the opportunity, though, you do have to talk about the opportunity lost, because it is just such an unfortunate situation for both those players. Ville Heinola finally, healthy, and for him to have to deal with that same ankle, that's going to really take him out from that pairing with Colin Miller, who I have to say has looked good in his opportunity on the right side in that third pairing unit. So you have Colin Miller, who I thought has looked good for the Jets, and again, he's going to get a lot of opportunity playing that second unit power play with that big blast from the point. And then you, of course, so Heinola's out, and then so you think, okay, well, Stanley's the de facto number 6, and he'll play alongside Miller, and maybe they could do something there. And then sure enough, he goes down with injury, and he's out for at least a month. So, for the Jets, 2 young players, well, relatively young players. Obviously, Heinola is 3 years younger, but you had guys who were going to get that final that shot that they needed to say, okay, here's my opportunity, here's my runway to prove I'm an NHLer. And they were either going to make or break it, I think, this out of the gate. Now, of course, they don't have a choice, and maybe break it is the wrong use of the word, because they're both now
a little morbid of you there, Mr.
Yeah, a little bit on the shelf.
Yeah.
But now, as you said, there's an opportunity for Hayden Fleury and Dylan Coghlan to say, okay, here's our chance to step up. And, we were going to be depth guys. We were probably going to be the next guys called up. And the other guy who I keep mentioning, and everybody seems to just glaze over, Simon Lundmark, the 2019 second rounder. He's a guy, I mean, it's not about what I observe, it's what I listen to, right? And part of what we do is listening to other people. And when the coaching staff of the team that you cover is consistently mentioning a player, you pay attention. And Simon Lundmark is a guy, who from the coaching staff of the Moose last year, whether it was Eric Dubois, who's in charge of the defense, or Mark Morrison, they talked about Simon Lundmark and his ability to, win those 50-50 battles and be a more aggressive version of himself. Again, Simon Lundmark is Dylan DeMello light. I've termed him that for a couple of years now. He's not flashy, but he's steady. And, he went in, and remember, this is a guy, to be clear, when they asked him to play on the left side, that's not something he frequently did. He played 67 games last year for the Moose, 66 of which were on the right side, one of which was on the left. But he went on the left side, actually. And again, let's be clear, as Drew said, you weren't playing the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You were playing the Bakersfield Condors. But at the same time, I thought Lundmark did well. So, and the coaching staff continues to mention him. Like Scott O'Neill, as he mentioned him yesterday in the media availability, talking about how he went in. And so Elias Salamonson, a right shot guy, he says he played a little bit of left in the Swedish Hockey League. He tried the left side yesterday against the Wild. So I wouldn't lock it in. I'd say Hayden Fleury's a lock to be probably that 6. But to me, those other guys still have a shot if they can make an impression over the next week.
Well, you have the carrot dangling in front of them. So yes, Hayden Fleury is probably going to get the first opportunity to be the rabbit that takes a bite out of it. But the other guys also know that, it's not that Hayden Fleury is a tremendous, is an NHL regular. He's been a guy who's sort of been a tweener for a lot of his career. So these other guys have to go, to your point, Dave, with the same mindset that, we're going to do everything in our power. We hope that Hayden succeeds, because you'd like to hope for your teammates to do well. But if he doesn't, I'm the next man up. Or if Hayden suffers an injury, which of course we would never hope for or anything like that, but there's clearly, as two guys in front of you get knocked off the depth chart, at least for a period of time, that means you move up, and that means the opportunity gets closer. That means you're closer to breaking through the glass ceiling, Ezzy. So all these guys who are playing on the Jets defense, be they left side or right side guys, have to be even more sharp, even more ready, even doing everything they can to make an impression on the coaching staff. And as Dave says, Simon Lundmark has continued to do so, and he's certainly not a guy that has been front of mind or the top of the conversation for Jets fans. But to Dave's point, the coaching staff keeps mentioning his name, which probably is a good sign for how they viewed his performance so far this preseason.
I agree with Dave. Lundmark has been impressive this training camp. And to your point, Drew, now Hayden Fleury and Dylan Coghlan, who were your 8 and 9 guys, now you're looking to Lundmark and you're looking to Elias Salamonson. I don't think Salamonson has had as good of a training camp as I would have liked to see. I think everybody knew going into this season he was going to start the season with the Moose, but I think you've heard trouble with the pace of the game and everything like that. I mean, look, Salamonson, he's going to be an NHL defenseman, but I think Lundmark is more NHL ready. I think David agrees. 23 years old at this point. He's played a bunch of years with the Moose, right? So I think that's what's interesting about, you get to see more of what your prospect pool can potentially do at the NHL level now because of injuries, right? And let's make no mistake, Hayden Fleury is going to get that job as the third pairing left side defenseman. Drew mentions, yes, he's been a journeyman. He's kind of bounced around from the American Hockey League to the NHL with the Kraken and the Hurricanes, and most recently the Lightning, right? But I mean, Fleury, I think, and Colin Miller form a very dependable duo, right? They're not going to be flashy. Miller obviously has the ability to bring out that big shot and maybe play a little bit on the second power play unit. I'm not sure, by the way, how much second power play unit time he's going to get, right? Because of course, Neil Pionk, he gets a lot of that. I'm not sure how much time the second power play for the Jets is going to get. Period. We'll talk about the power play units a little bit later on, and the penalty kill units a little bit later on in the show, because that is certainly has been tweaked so far this training camp as well. Right, and so I mean, looking at this kind of at a macro level, this shouldn't affect. It's not like people shouldn't be looking at these injuries thinking, well, this means the Jets are going to lose 5 of their first 6 games. We should mention the Jets' schedule is pretty easy to start the season. We haven't really, started to dissect the early part of the schedule, but that 4-game homestand where you've got the Hawks and you've got the Wild and the Sharks and the Penguins, it's not exactly like you're going up against the Panthers and the Avalanche and the Rangers, right? So the Jets, early part of the schedule is easy, but I mean, it doesn't mean that those games are already won. They still have to go win those games. So yeah, I look at this it's just really unfortunate for guys like Heinola and Stanley, who obviously are still trying to establish themselves as full-time NHLers. But on the other hand, just a great opportunity for Hayden Fleury. And you have to look at it from a positive angle. Like Heinola and Stanley are injured. There's nothing we can do about it at this point. You just have to hope that they're back on the ice sooner rather than later. Obviously, Heinola is a little bit more uncertain. I thought it was interesting. I know Dave will agree. Scott Arniel, I think he said 4 weeks, and then he quickly backtracked and said, okay, we don't really know. But it seems like this is going to be weeks, plural. It's not, Heinola is not going to be back anytime early in the regular season, right? So it's going to be probably a month, maybe longer. So you just hope that it doesn't get into the 2 to 3 month territory, right? But it's just unfortunate for him because obviously, he seemed like a guy who was a lock to make the Jets top 6 just based on, how he played last year in training camp, how he played for the Moose last year. But, luckily the Jets rest of the roster is healthy and I think they'll be fine. But it's just, a great opportunity for Hayden Fleury, who you didn't really think was going to play many games for the Jets this year.
What's intriguing to me about all these injuries, and again, I want to preface this with saying I never want to see a player get injured, but I'm not a big Logan Stanley guy. I personally am of the opinion
because he's 6'7".
Well, yeah, I'm personally of the opinion the Jets probably should have moved on from him. I think we've seen what he is at the NHL level, and there's just not a ton of upside, I think, left in his game. He's a depth guy who, at the NHL level, probably better suited on a good team to be a 7th or an 8th rather than in your top 6. So I'm a little intrigued to see what somebody else can do in that role, because with the Heinola injury, there was no doubt in my mind that Logan Stanley was probably going to be the regular left side pairing defenseman with Colin Miller on that third pair. And I was sort of holding my nose a little bit about that idea because we know it. It's a known quantity. It's a known factor, and it's not that exciting, and I think it can be exploited. Now, can that be exploited with Hayden Fleury and Colin Miller? Yes, probably. But I'm still intrigued just to see it in action, to see the other opportunities in action, which, we'll talk about the forwards a little bit later on, but it's the same idea. We know what Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde are, but so I would be more intrigued to see what a different trio in action would bring to the table. So now that the injury has happened on the back end, or the injuries, I'm curious to see what a Miller and Fleury pairing can do, what a Miller and Coghlan pairing could do, what a Miller and Lundmark pairing could do. Just to see the unknown, I think is going to be intriguing to me to at least start the season.
I don't think, look, Hayden Fleury's not a flashy defenseman.
No.
He's not going to give you a lot of offense. He's a big guy, but he's we talked about it already. He's
stay at home kind of defense.
Sure, and except when his son's born, he goes to the rink. But no, but Hayden Fleury's a guy that you expect.
That was good. That was good.
Not bad. Hayden Fleury's a guy that will just he brings that wealth of NHL and AHL experience. Dependable is the way I would describe him. Right, like he can use his body. He's not a monster out there. He's not Zdeno Chara, but I think. Based on the way look, guys, you could argue Colin Miller has been the most impressive Jet in training camp and in the preseason, especially the preseason games, right? And that's why we were talking about it last year after he was acquired from New Jersey. Like, why isn't this guy getting in the lineup more? And obviously, there were other defensemen ahead of him. Notably, Nate Schmidt was ahead of him. So obviously now Miller is a lock on that third pair, as opposed to last year where there was a little bit of a battle there on the third pairing between Stanley and Nate Schmidt and Ville Heinola, right? So I think, it is going to be a little bit interesting because it's just not somebody who we've seen on the Jets that much before. The third pair in general is not a pair that we've seen on the Jets a lot before. So I think they're going to be fine. Like I said, I'm not worried. I think the Jets are going to be fine without Heinola and without Stanley in the lineup. It's just unfortunate because you never want to see guys get injured, and you never, Dave, want to see guys get injured, especially at this point in training camp and preseason, notably specifically Heinola, I should say, because the injury happened at the exact same time last year.
I like your glass half full optimism, Ezzy, and that's always as the sun is shining on you on the screen. It's nice to see that you have that sunny disposition. I'm concerned about the Jets back end. I've been concerned about the Jets back end really since since Brendan Dillon departed and since there weren't any additional reinforcements brought in. I think the Jets back end is going to be the absolute linchpin if this season is going to be at least if this regular season is going to be a success. I need to see that back end somehow solidify itself and become better than the sum of its parts, because I look at that back end on paper, and aside from Morrissey and DeMello, you have a lot of questions on every other player.
Well, the second pair, I don't know. Like, I mean, do we really have that many questions about Dylan Samberg?
Yeah, I do. In an elevated role where he's never played against that higher level of competition, absolutely, I have questions about
that. Well,
I
don't. I mean, you do, so that's fair. I mean, we're allowed to disagree a little bit, but I think the second pair is really the key almost to the Jets season, because like you said, Drew, Josh Morrissey, he's a top 10, if not top 5 defenseman in the league. Dylan DeMello, I mean, we know led the league in plus minus, or was second in the league in plus minus, one of the better defensive defensemen in the league. Morrissey and DeMello is a legitimate first pairing in the NHL. So you're talking about Dylan Samberg and Neil Pionk, a couple Minnesota boys, are going to be the key really to this defense, because like you said, Samberg is going to play. I agree with you. Samberg hasn't played those types of minutes before. He's been more in a third pairing role with Nate Schmidt or whoever was on that third pair, right? But I mean, look, I mean, Neil Pionk, I think we know that last year did not go how he wanted it to go. He's got to be better. There's no doubt, Drew. He's got to be better. Neil Pionk's got to be better. And I think, look, he had a 4-point night recently, right, Dave? Like, he's looked good. He's saying all the right things in training camp. I mean, he's admitting that he trained harder and wanted to be better than last year finished. In the playoffs, he struggled. But I'm looking at that second pair. If there's one pair that I'm the most concerned about, it would be that pair, and it's more so Pionk than Samberg, because I think Samberg has done everything the right way. I think he's earned the spot, and I think he can handle second pairing minutes. But it remains to be seen if that pair together is going to give them what they need, because let's be honest, for a long time, Brendan Dillon and Neil Pionk were a great second pair. They started to struggle a little bit. But you've got to have your top 4 has got to be solid. Your top 6 has to be solid, but I think Fleury and Colin Miller are going to be a fine third pair.
Like I said, I like your optimism there, but I agree with you though that Neil Pionk and maybe a return to the success he had earlier in his tenure as a member of the Winnipeg Jets would be a huge plus for the Jets, because he has struggled the last number of years. It's been the injury where he was playing the season with a broken foot. I mean, that is,
which for the record, none of us ever knew about
until this week, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to bring that up when you threw it to me, but it's interesting because like Chevy dropped that in a conversation at Penticton, but like, it was not something that was out there. We knew he was injured. It was clear. I mean, for whatever reason, I don't know why they didn't acknowledge it, but to me, it was clear that he was dealing with an injury. And then Scott O'Neill did say, what happened to Adam Johnson, who was Neil Pionk's best friend last year, obviously the tragedy over in England. Yeah. He said that had a huge impact on him. So,
as you would expect.
Yeah. And so that there's no doubt about the impact something like that would have on someone. So we'll see. I mean, I think I'm with Ez. I think Neil Pionk's play is probably the biggest sort of question as to the success of this Jets team, because what you have in DeMello and Morrissey. That's not really a question. Samberg and Pionk combined, because Drew, you're right. Like Dylan Samberg is playing in an elevated role, but every hockey player wants an elevated role. Every hockey player, you talk to a player, you will not find a player who doesn't say, maybe Josh Morrissey, because he already gets enough. But for the most part, every guy wants more, Ezzy. Every guy wants to get those additional minutes, that additional responsibility. So here's your chance, Dylan Samberg, and this is a role you were geared towards, right? You're a 2017 second rounder. This is a guy that has been groomed for this opportunity. He's supposed to be the guy behind Josh Morrissey that takes that, that Brendan Dillon role of being able to, elevate his game and become what the Jets need him to be. The Jets don't need him to be a third pairing defenseman. They need a second pairing out of Dylan Samberg. They're going to find out if that's what they have in him this season. And again, it'll be a trial by fire. That's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Folks, it's ironic, I should say, that people clamor for that for guys who have been in the league, 1 or 2 years. And then when you get a guy who's been in the league for more time than that, they're saying, well, is he ready? Well, we're going to find out if he's ready. And that's important. That's what you want to see, is this guy there's nobody in front of him. There's no safety net after Dylan Sandberg, right? So yes, you want to see Dylan Sandberg get this opportunity. You want to see him run with it. And my presumption for folks who are pointing to his play in the playoffs, first of all, again, I want to be clear. The Jets as a team stunk in the playoffs. So yes, individually, you could say this guy didn't have a good playoffs, but you could say that collectively because they weren't good as a team. So I would think that, again, if you give...
I didn't think Sandberg was that bad in the playoffs last year, to be honest.
I don't remember anybody being good. So, I mean, like, the reality is it's not like you're saying, well, I mean, Perfetti was good, I guess, when he came in for that one game. But the fact of the matter is that for the most part, the team collectively wasn't very good. So the fact is that if you have Sandberg get that full season under his belt in that elevated role, I suspect he's able to handle anything that's thrown at him in the playoffs this year. Because, again, he'll have a more... he'll just be like anything, which when you have more experience in a role, you get better at it. And so to me, I think that he'll be able to handle it. And so if Pionk can return to what we've seen, that's a huge if, by the way. But if he can, then that's significant for the Jets. And if Dylan,
well, then I think, Dave, then you're going to see Colin Miller potentially get that spot. I really do. I don't
disagree with you.
I don't think that. Look, I think, like, let's see some regular season games where we've still got preseason games left, right? Like, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I do think that's why the Colin Miller signing, when it happened, we thought it was such a good signing. It made so much sense because you have a guy, if Neil Pionk is struggling on the second pair, Colin Miller can go up there. But I do think Sandberg and Pionk are going to be fine. I think Pionk's going to have a better year. And look, I'm not saying the Jets defense is perfect right now. I mean, you're missing a couple of guys that you thought were going to be in your top 7. But I think they're going to be fine. I mean, they're going to have to play the system that is being asked of them, right? Like, they're not going to be able to all, be Bobby Orr out there. I mean, this system requires them to be responsible defensively. We saw that last year when the Jets were at their peak. That's the tight. They got to play tight defensive hockey. When the Jets try to play Colorado Avalanche, Edmonton Oilers hockey, we've seen the results.
You're absolutely right. And for the record, I do think that it's time to give Sandberg the opportunity. You're right, because he's got a pedigree, second round pick. I thought it was the right move to let Brendan Dillon walk, to put Sandberg into that role and give him the opportunity. Now, whether or not we're right or wrong, time will tell on that, and we'll see how significant the growing pains are as he becomes the second pairing left side defenseman. But I did think that it is time to sort of take the proverbial training wheels off and let him be a top 4 NHL defenseman. That's the Jets hope he'll fill into that role as a top 4 Winnipeg Jets NHL defenseman. We go to break, and when we come back, from Sportsnet.ca, the newest Winnipeg Jets writer, Jacob Stoller, is going to join us on the show. Jacob, of course, a familiar face from around the Winnipeg media. He's now got a new role with Sportsnet. He joins us next. Saturday morning, Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Bottom of hour number 1. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. The program presented by our friends at Play Now. Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Always enjoy responsibly. Jacob Stoller going to be joining us momentarily here on the program. Want to let everyone know, be sure to check out and be subscribed or following us on all of our social media channels. We're going to have Winnipeg Jets tickets to give away on our social media channels, courtesy of our friends at Play Now. So if you want to go to the home opener, it's not yet up. So don't, you can go subscribe now, but you don't have to, start entering just yet. We'll get the details up in the course of the next few days or next, sometime next week. But we're going to have tickets courtesy of our friends at Play Now to the home opener between the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks. One other thing I want to mention before we bring in Jacob Stoller, we spent a lot of the first segment talking about Neil Pionk. Great article in today's Winnipeg Free Press. I'm sure it's available on illegalcurve.com, linked in the morning papers. Our good friend Ken Wiebe sat down with Neil Pionk to talk about the impact of last year, the impact of losing Adam Johnson to that terrible injury in England, and how Neil is sort of processing that and coming and handling the grief that was associated with that. So great job by Kenny in speaking with Neil Pionk. Kudos to Neil for speaking so openly and honestly and showing the vulnerability involved with that. So check that out on illegalcurve.com. It's linked there in the morning papers. We're pleased to welcome to the program from sportsnet.ca, covers the Winnipeg Jets, our good friend Jacob Stoller joins us on the program. Jakey, how are you, buddy? Good morning.
Doing good. I gotta say, I'm probably the first guest that has had like an Illegal Curve sandwich once a week that hasn't been on the show yet.
Well,
I
if you've had an Illegal Curve sandwich once a week, you're probably the first guest that hasn't had a coronary. So that's also.
You have no idea, Jacob, how happy that makes me that you enjoy the Illegal Curve sandwich, because we put that sandwich. It took us a couple of years to come up with that sandwich, Drew. Like, we went back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
At one point, I think we were even considering like having potato salad in the sandwich and maybe even like corned beef, or there was another meat option, Jacob. So yeah, we appreciate you supporting the Illegal Curve sandwich at Bernstein's. Shout out to them. They used to be a sponsor, no longer, but
still friends of ours, though.
Still friends. Best sandwich in the world as far as I'm concerned.
No question about it. Jakey, welcome to the program. I guess, we spent the first segment of the show talking about the Winnipeg Jets back end and the injuries that have been suffered. Obviously, Heinola, now Stanley out. And I'm of the opinion that the determining factor for the Winnipeg Jets, at least early on in the year, will be how that defense solidifies with so many unknowns and so many new pieces and moving parts there. Just from your perspective, having been at training camp, been at the preseason games, watching this team, how important will it be for that defense to grow up quickly for the Jets to succeed in a manner similar to last year?
Yeah, like, to be honest, I don't even know if it's a matter of growing up. Like, I think that the way I look at it is the Jets have wounds. They either going to fix it with a Band-Aid or with stitches. No matter what you want to say optimistically about this team, if you want them to go past the first round, they need to have either, sure, you can say someone taking a step forward, but I really believe that they need another piece there. So to me, like, if you look at history, I don't think that Kevin Sheldup is going to go out and make a trade at this point while Stanley and Heinola are out. I think he'll wait to see what he has. But Drew, like, to your point about like how important it is, like, I honestly think that with the Central Division being tougher, there's not going to be as many easy games for the Jets, and like this early part of the schedule for them, like, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but the point being is if they roll out the decor that they're slated to, I mean, it looks pretty dicey for them, to be honest. I don't have a lot of faith in that back end. Not trying to be a negative Nelly here on a beautiful Saturday morning, but I like all their pieces individually. I think, of course, we all love Josh Morrissey. DeMello's a good compliment. I like Dylan Samberg. I don't know if he's necessarily there to be a number 3D. Same with Pionk. I don't think he's a top 4 defenseman. That, again, as you mentioned, had a tough year last year personally. I like Colin Miller, but that's a bottom pairing guy. So I like them each. I think that they're all kind of just pieces that are in the wrong spots.
Yeah, fair enough. And, Jacob, I want to give you a shout out, first off, with your new position with Sportsnet, but also you had a really good article this week about the Connor Scheifele-Vilardi line, and you went deep and went into the numbers. And I think you'd agree, this has been a hot button topic for years now. The Connor Scheifele pairing, not so much Vilardi, because obviously Vilardi's been a member of the Jets only for a couple seasons, but the Connor Scheifele pairing. And you go in to the numbers, and I have the article here. You mentioned that the Connor Scheifele-Vilardi line last year posted a 35.3 expected goals percentage, right? And you don't have to be a math professor to know that that's not very good, right? And
right.
The top line, right? So I'm going to ask you the question. The headline of the article is, how long is Scott Arniel going to keep the Connor Scheifele-Vilardi line together? So how long is he going to keep this line together, especially if you have similar results like that?
Probably too long. Like, to be honest with you, like nothing tells me that, and this is nothing against Scott Arniel, but if you recall, there was, and you guys can help me fill in the blanks, there was that game last year in Washington. Rick Bowness was away, Arniel was coaching, and he split Scheifele and Connor from one another for the first period. But then the second period, he put them right back, even though it was one of the best periods you've seen of Scheifele, either as Vilardi. Like, they were dominant that period. And then right away, he switched back. So, to me, like, and whatever's driving that, that's a conversation for a different day. I don't know why it is that they're so dedicated to that top line. But I have a feeling that we're going to see this kind of beaten to the ground. The one caveat to it, I mentioned this in the piece, though, is I'll give them this. Like, Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde had a lot of stops and starts last year where there was injuries. There was, like Connor was out. Sorry, Velarde was out like the third game of the season. Then once he was back, it wasn't long till Kyle Connor was gone as well. So they didn't get much time to gel. And then once they were together, it wasn't working. And then they go in the playoffs. It was kind of a perfect storm there. So in theory, like the line works. It makes sense. Like they look cute in the offensive zone. I think their biggest obstacle is that like to get from point A to B in terms of zone like entries and exits, like Connor and Scheifele are very east to west in my opinion, in terms of neutral zone, whereas Ehlers just flies in. Yes, he's chaotic, but he really helps them in that regard. I honestly think that for the Jets to be as good as they like believe that they can be, they need to split Scheifele and Connor, not just because of how they are together, but to have each of those players on one line and really make a more balanced top six is probably the most fruitful thing for them anyways.
Well, Jacob, the second line, which is most likely where they will not be on, is has Cole Perfetti, and it seems like it was a year ago that he signed his deal. It was only a few days ago. So you wrote about it. How will the Jets deploy Cole Perfetti, and in what way is the best to do it to get the most out of the 2020 first rounder?
Yeah, so I would say, well, I think the best way to put it is to put him with Kyle Connor, but I don't think that's going to happen. I love that stretch where I think it was Monahan, Perfetti, and Connor last year. I think it was in February. I can't remember exactly, but perfect kind of thing where I think Perfetti can complement a player like Connor, similar to how Scheifele can in terms of reading plays and kind of that hockey IQ. I think what we'll see is, and Scott Arniel kind of basically said it the last couple of days, it'll be some combination of Nikolai Ehlers, and then the center will be either Vladimir Mesnikov or Brad Lambert, and then Cole Perfetti. Perfetti will probably be on his off wing. Ehlers can play either wing either, but I anticipate Perfetti will be on his off wing to start. That minute detail I don't know for sure. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes because, for Perfetti, last year, it was all about, okay, Cole Perfetti's a center. We drafted him as a center. This is where we want him to be. Now we're a year later, and it's interesting. Like Scarniel's like, the most important part of being a center is getting, from down low in battles up to the ice, basically without saying it, that you need the foot speed for it. And Cole Perfetti doesn't. So now as a winger, it's interesting. Like, I'm a big believer in Cole Perfetti, but I definitely think that last year there was a lot left to be had. I think we all were expecting more sometimes, and whether it was opportunity or whatnot. So I'm really interested to see how he gels with those guys. If Brad Lambert, who I'm sure we'll get to any minute now, is the center, I think that would be a good sort of, and Ehlers, Perfetti is not very fast by any means, but he could be a nice stabilizer for those two in terms of setting them up and distributing them and sending them in transition. So I'm curious to see how that line does.
Saturday morning, Jacob Staller of Sportsnet.ca, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I like the sounds of that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure Jacob likes the sounds of it too.
I do too. Drew's the only person in Winnipeg media to get my last name pronounced correctly, and I'll never forget.
I've known you for long enough, Jakey, that I think I should be able to get your name right. If Manute can't get your
name
right.
I thought your last name was Stollery.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah, close.
So you mentioned Brad Lambert, Jake, and it seemed like he was doing everything right to start training camp, and he was making that impression. If you were a betting man with Play Now, of course, if you were a betting man today, and when the season starts in Edmonton, is he a member of the Winnipeg Jets or is he a member of the Manitoba Moose, assuming no forward injuries?
I'm going to say he's a member of the Manitoba Moose. It's not the fun answer, fans. I get that. But before I explain why, I think that we also need to acknowledge one thing. Brad Lambert is so young. Like, people forget, last year in the AHL, I believe there was 10 to 12, not much more, if any, players his age in the AHL. Like, Brad Lambert is a very young hockey player. So him going down to the AHL at this phase, like, let's relax a bit here.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Not a problem at all. What I think is this. You could talk, there's this weird theory around that the best way to develop is to be thrown in the water in the NHL. To me, I would say, if you are a junior accountant, are you telling me the best way to learn is to become the CEO of the company? Doesn't really work that way. So, like, this idea that you just go and give it doesn't make sense to me. And what I've seen from Brad Lambert is tremendous, instincts in a lot of ways. I think he's made some great reads in the neutral zone, offensive zone. but the guy's getting clobbered in the defensive zone on a lot of plays, like demolished. And I think it's actually a disservice to him to start him in the second line center spot against some of the best centers in the National Hockey League if he's not ready for it. He could go down, continue to dominate. If an injury happens, you come up, he has more confidence, and then from there he can take hold of a spot. But I think that sending him down also eliminates the need to waive one of Rasmus Kupari or David Gustafsson. Scott Arniel said that they're going with a 22-man roster. So if you send Lambert down, you keep those two up there. Vlad's a 2C. I think knowing the Jets, they care about that stuff, right or wrong. So I would wager that Lambert starts as in the Moose, but wouldn't be surprised if, which Mr. Manukler remember, in 2018, Kyle Connor was sent down to the Moose, and then it was 5 games later, I believe, that he came back up. Was it Perreault that got injured?
Perreault.
Yeah.
Perreault got injured, came back up. Injuries happen all the time. But I will say from this camp, if there's one thing I can draw, it's that Brad Lambert has improved so much, guys. Like even from last year, let alone 2 years ago, this guy's gotten better and better. And like kudos to the Jets for gambling on the kid after he fell in his draft year. Like I think he's going to be a stud. He has all the tools to do it. But for now, he kind of looks like Scheifele when he came to the league. Looks like Bambi a bit when he's falling.
I think you make a really good point. I think first off, you're young, so we have to throw that out there relative to us, Jacob. Most people are young relative to us at this point, but I think that when you look at what he's done in training camp and preseason, we've seen the speed and the skill, and so that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not a question of if he's going to play for the Jets; it's just a question of when, right? That's what you're saying, right? I wanted to shift a little bit to the fourth line because I think you'd agree. I mean, you've got a lot of talent on that fourth line, and there's going to be some odd man out. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who do you think starts opening night roster on that fourth line? Who do you think gets the 13th forward spot? Because it looks like, guys like Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, Jared Anderson-Dolan, these guys, they're most likely going to have to go on waivers and be sent down to the Moose.
Yeah. So let's assume Brad Lambert doesn't make the team for the first one. I would say the 13th forward would be Rasmus Kupari. I think David Gustafsson will be that fourth line center. Because look, like the guy won 54% of his draws last year. He killed penalties. I think he's a great compliment to Morgan and to Barron and Iafallo. I almost said Borgen to Barron and Iafallo. And for me, like I was kind of surprised that Gustafsson wasn't the center the other day, but Scott Arniel said they haven't had Rasmus Kupari have many reps like at all since becoming a Jet, so it kind of made sense there as well. But you mentioned Jared Anderson-Dolan and like that guy, like if a team gets an injury in the next couple days and that guy's on waivers, I would not be surprised if he's claimed. Like Jared Anderson-Dolan has a lot of fans around the NHL in terms of scouts and stuff like that. He's kind of a tweener, but when I saw him playing with Appleton and Lowry, I know it's preseason, I'm not looking at the score, but the way he was playing, like he didn't look out of place whatsoever. So the Jets have a lot of really quality depth. The Moose certainly look great this year, as Dave and I were talking about the other night. I can't remember a year where they had this many guys that not just could be good AHL players, but could conceivably compete for an NHL spot. Like Mason Shaw, Hayden Fleury. Well, Hayden Fleury's now on the team because all the injuries. But, Jared Anderson-Dolan, Axel Jonsson-Fjallby. You throw Don McTonianato in there. Yeah, so he's played NHL games. It's a lot of guys. And that doesn't even mention that Chipper Call will probably be there as well. So it'll be a fun year in Mooseland with Dave Nuke.
Come on down. No, what? Let's stick with the Jets, though. We'll talk about. I'm always happy to talk about the Moose, Jacob, as you know. But the one I'm curious about, because he sounded a bit. He's like, look, it's going to be a learning experience for me. Was Nikolai Ehlers in that bumper position, and what did we talked about it a little bit? But what do you think is in that power play? Jets fans were clamoring. They wanted Nikolai Ehlers on that first power play unit, and he talked about it. He's like, it's not a position I'm familiar with, not a position I play, but I'm going to learn.
I got to say, when I first saw that at practice, my initial thought was like, this doesn't make sense. Like my just knee-jerk reaction. But when I heard two things, when I saw the way that they used Ehlers on there and the thinking behind it, and when Scott Arniel explained it in terms of being mobile in that bumper position, also mentioning how important it is, it kind of started to click for me, and I like it. I mean, the reality is, even last year or whenever Ehlers came on power play 1, he was never being utilized as a factor on the power pass as they used to be, because all they were doing was passing around and going for a merry-go-round. It was embarrassing. Now there's some innovation with this power play, and when you have Ehlers in that bumper, what I think is so interesting is when you have a bumper like, you think of the Braden Points, Sam Reinhart's, Ahos, guys that have that quick release like Ehlers does, but are also shifty and kind of making penalty killers, that are deceptive, and penalty killers have to react. It adds a whole other layer to this power play that opens up space for the guys in the flanks, like Kyle Connor, even Mark Scheifele, Morrissey. So I love it from that aspect as well. And I think that, it's overdue that Nikolai Ehlers is on the first power play unit. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it does. Who knows how long it lasts, to be honest with you, and that's nothing against him. I just think that it's a pretty, optimistic thing that this could really click for right away. There's going to be some growing pains. How patient will they be? That I do not know. Maybe they throw Alex Iafallo back there, whatnot, but I think it's worth giving some leeway too, because if you can get Ehlers' shot activated there from the middle, like that power play will get a lot better than 22nd like they were last year.
Jacob Staller, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, Saturday morning at 10 minutes before the top of the hour. Jacob, the power play is certainly going to be intriguing. What I think certainly caught a lot of people's eyes this week is the second unit forward group on the PK, two guys not known for their defensive prowess in Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. I guess your initial impression on the idea or the thought process that Scheifele and Connor are going to be second over the boards when the Jets are killing a penalty after, of course, Lowry and Appleton started off.
Yeah. Let's just see. Let's see if that actually happens. To me, I see that being that they kill the last 20, 30 seconds or something. I don't see, they'll be the second over the boards or whatnot. I don't know, because here's the thing. If you're playing them on the second unit for the penalty kill, in theory, can't you not play the first power play unit for like 2 minutes? Like, you got to kind of have that balance there. So either A, they're planning on giving that second power play unit a bit more life, and that's why they're doing that. Or B, they're just saying, you know what, like, we'll adjust the fly if we need to, but, Scheifele will be killing penalties and also playing a minute and a half in the power play. So, I am of the belief that Kyle Connor could be a great penalty killer. I'm of the belief that Mark Scheifele can be a great penalty killer. My question is, do they want to, and are they willing to do what they need to do to be good penalty killers? That's the only thing for me. They both can anticipate plays really well. Like Connor especially, like that to me, I always think can work, but the way that they've been playing for years with one another and just kind of, how do I politely say it? Disregarding
having a lack of attention to detail on the defensive side.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this then. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting, but giving them that penalty killing role, if it happens, or at least they've talked about it, there's no question they practiced it. Giving them that role, do you think an element of that is to try and maybe further ingrain a defensive consciousness into them, even if it's also at their 5-on-5 play?
Oh, I think there's that, but I think there's also, I wonder if there's a psychological element of it to be like, hey, we're going to have you killing penalties. It's not something they've been asked to do forever here, or really have they have never in the last however many years, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele have seldom, if ever, been benched for terrible defensive play, right? And I think coming to them and saying, you're going to be killing penalties, there's also a psychological element of like, hey, yeah, we actually do need you to play defensively, and we need you to play it really darn well. And, if not, it's not going to look good or whatever. I think that is certainly an element to unlock that there. I'm still not. So as long as those two are playing together on that first line, I don't think we'll see much back checking. That's all I'll say on that.
I'm with you, Jacob, on that. The Scheifele Connor penalty killing experiment, I'm not sure how long this, like, if it's between the two, I like Connor better because of the speed. Yeah. Like, Scheifele's not a slow player. That's not what I'm saying at all. But obviously, Connor's one of the fastest guys in the league. So I like that element. But yeah, like Scheifele blocking shots and doing everything like that, that's not the type of player he is. And the Jets happen to have an abundance of good penalty killers, starting with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton, right? So you've got a lot of guys on this team who can kill penalties, whether that's Morgan Barron, whether that's Alex Iafallo. We mentioned Jared Anderson-Dolan earlier. He can kill penalties if he's in the lineup. Gustafson, right? David Gustafson is a reliable defensive forward. So I'm with you. Let's wait and see how the Scheifele-Connor PK experiment goes. But I do like to see it. It's just these guys are not, like, all due respect, these guys are not known as being great defensive players. Offense is the name of the game with these guys, right? Just wanted to switch from talking about the PK and the power play and Scheifele and Connor to the goaltending, right? Because I think I know what your answer to this question is going to be, but who do you think has the backup job right now? Because I think Kaapo Kähkönen, you'd agree, going into training camp, people kind of gave him the inside track, or maybe the team gave him the inside track. But I mean, the preseason games, there was one good and one not so good. But is it for you? Is it still Kähkönen gets the job behind Hellebuck, and then Comrie is the mentor for Thomas Milic in the AHL?
I thought you were about to ask me who the Jets starting goalie was going to be. And I was like, okay, well, you should know the answer when to give. I think Eric Comrie's moose bound, like, for sure. I butcher this name all the time. Is it Kaapo Kähkönen or Kaapo Kähkönen? This is
Kaapo Kähkönen.
Thank you. So Kaapo Kähkönen is he actually has had some really good stints in the NHL. I think that in San Jose it was obviously a tire fire. But, he's had some good sense to prove an NHL goalie. Eric Comrie, was a good backup for the Jets, secured the bag of Buffalo, and ultimately was not very successful there. So to me, Comrie, just knowing Eric Comrie, and Dave could speak to this too, the person that he is, not only his abilities, but to me, it also just screamed the second of the signing, okay, they want him as a mentor for the young goalies they have with the Moose. It just kind of seems perfect like that. I think with Cap, like, the thing, I don't know what you guys think about this, but throwing it out there, like, shouldn't we start discussing, Hellebuck's workload? He's going to have the Four Nations Cup this year. That's what it's called, right?
Yep.
Four Nations Cup. Last year, the year before too, he loves to play every game. We're seeing the playoffs where there's really heavy workloads. I wouldn't say he's burning out, but he's letting some goals pass him. He doesn't want to. You have to start wondering if they want to decrease his regular season workload, especially back-to-backs. He should never be playing those. And, further to that, with Kakko, like, that's a huge burden if you have this guy playing 20, 25 games. I think he's able to be average or serviceable, rather. But as we mentioned with the Jets' defensive issues, it's not going to be like, Brossoit there or whatever. Like, there's definitely a drop-off in the quality of backup goaltender. But, I don't think it's going to be catastrophic, so to speak. If the Jets are good defensively as a team, I think Kaapo can stop pucks.
Jacob, we're 10 days into training camp. We're expecting another round of cuts. The team's off today. They'll probably maybe they'll announce it tomorrow, but we expect them sometime this weekend. And I'm just curious, who's kind of caught your eye throughout the course of training camp? Who have you kind of been like, okay, I'm impressed by what I'm seeing in the drills or what I'm seeing in the game? Who has kind of been your, maybe a dark horse or just a player that, has done something unexpected for you so far?
Nikita Chibrikov is awesome, man. That guy is so, like, I'm honestly convinced he could play in the NHL right now. Circumstances will, force it to go another way, just given they've got too many NHL contracted guys right now in the bottom six. It's a good problem to have. It's not even a problem, right? Just it's a reality of the situation. If the Jets season goes south and we see a fire sale around February or January, that would be great for a guy like Chibrikov, who I think will come up towards the end of the year and be an NHLer for the rest of it. Like, I think this guy has everything that you want. He's 5'9", but he doesn't play like it. He's got a great shot. He's he'd be an annoying guy to play against. If I was a hockey player. I can't relate because I played A3 hockey for the River Heights Cardinals. But if I think
I got my badge up here somewhere for A3 hockey for River Heights.
I'm sure the listeners will be shocked that we all played A3. That's probably shocking to them.
Drew was a great tennis player, though. Like, I mean, they still talk about him at Glendale.
The country club sports is where I was suited for.
Yeah, same here. I'm good at pickleball. Well, I think I'm good at it. Who knows? But anyways, Chibrikov is one of those guys that, like, I would love to see him with Appleton and Lowry, because he can do what Nino does as a high volume shooter, but he's got more bite too. Another thing against Nino Niederreiter, but, like, you have a bit more tenacity in your face with Chibrikov. So I love him. I just love what he's done in the one-on-one battle drills. He's gone against some, and I think this has been intentional. Like, obviously there's a rotation of who's next in line for these, but you could tell, like, they want to see this against much bigger players Chibrikov has won a lot of those 50-50 battles, and that's very encouraging for him. I think if they need a wing call, like if there's an injury in the top 9, so to speak, so like Jared Anderson-Dolan, I think is the first forward call up for a fourth line injury or whatever. If there's a top 9 winger injury, you could do Brad Lambert, but I think Chibrikov is first, if not maybe second in that pecking order.
Jacob Staller, Sportsnet.ca, does great work covering the Winnipeg Jets, and a great appearance here this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And pickleball, that too. Jakey, thank you. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Happy New Year next week. Everything else, we'll see you around the rink.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Take care. There he goes, Jacob Staller, joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. When we come back after the break, hour number 2 of the show, we delve deep. We spent time on the defense, rather. We're going to go into the forward groups and the special teams. Much more to come. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, rolls on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whatever your day throws at you, Kids Eat Free is back at Boston Pizza to turn it all around, with free kids meals and family fun all September long. Plus, Mario and Friends are taking over with an exclusive kids booklet and more, all free with minimum purchase all month long.
Alrighty, here we go with hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg here on a Saturday morning. This segment brought to you by our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, celebrating 40 years as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. The 40th anniversary spectacular taking place next week at Rumors, Friday and Saturday, 5. Count them, 5. Of Rumors' most popular stand-up comedians, all performing as part of the same show. Tickets are in limited supply, but still available at rumorscomedyclub.com. While we're talking about next week, a bit of a programming note for everybody, as next Saturday, no, it's not next week.
2
week
weeks.
after, 2 weeks from now. Sorry, we'll skip it. They got confused. The calendar's been very confusing for me as of late. But so for now,
Don't get ahead of yourself.
It shouldn't be that confusing, Drew. There's 12 months.
I know. My brain is just
some
been
months have
mushed.
30 days, some months have 31 days.
The 1 month has 28 days also.
Yep,
There
that's
you
true.
go.
Sometimes 29. Last year, 29.
Yeah, last year was 29.
We did a show on 29.
That's true.
Isn't it crazy that people that are born like on February 28th or like they're
29.
only like Yeah, 29th though. That they only have
February 28th, they have a regular
Isn't that
birthday.
crazy that you only get a
Your
birthday
terrible
every 4
joke
years?
was made more terrible by your failure to execute your attempted terrible joke.
Said terrible joke.
Yeah.
Bombed.
Let's talk about something that wasn't very good last year. Borderline terrible at times, and that's the Winnipeg Jets special teams, which is certainly going to see a revamped unit so far this year. We know that the power play, which is what the Jets, were working on, and certainly garnered a lot of attention earlier this week with that new look power play unit that featured Nikolai Ehlers in the bumper spot and really sounded like was going to see a lot more motion, a lot more movement than what was a very stationary, very standstill power play. The 1-3-1, Morrissey at the top of the umbrella, Velarde at the bottom, and then Scheifele, Ehlers, and Connor across the middle of it is how it's designed to set up, at least to start the season. I guess your initial impressions about this new look power play, haven't seen it really in significant or legitimate game action, Ezzy, but on paper and in concept, how do you think it sounds to you?
It sounds good because they're trying new things. That's what I like. And, look, Scheifele's been in that position. They've had Adam Lowry in that position. They've had a bunch of different players in that position. Ehlers definitely has the skill set to be in that position. But you mentioned it, Drew. When the Jets power play, when there's motion, and this goes for most power plays, not just in the NHL, but just in general in hockey. I mean, we've talked about it so many times. On a power play, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take advantage of the fact that the other team only has 4 players on the ice, right? So you're trying to create odd man situations. We've talked about it so much, those kind of triangular situations where you have 3 forwards and 2 defensemen, right? Or 3 forwards and a forward and a defenseman on the other team, right? So obviously Gabe Velarde absolutely was great last year on the power play. And when he was out of the lineup, you could see that it immediately sagged. So I like the fact that they're trying new things. And look, Kevin Sawyer said this on the last broadcast, not last night's broadcast, but I guess the game against Edmonton in Winnipeg. There's just way too much skill on this Jets team to have a bottom third power play. That's what it ultimately comes down to. So you have to figure out the best combination of players and the best schemes that allows that skill to come out, right? And we've seen, look, Connor, Scheifele, Morrissey, Velarde, Ehlers. I mean, the Jets have a lot of talent on that second power play unit as well. We mentioned Neil Pionk is usually the defenseman on that power play unit. Cole Perfetti, guys, I think is a guy that we haven't mentioned yet. I think Perfetti is a guy who can absolutely shine on the top power play unit for a variety of reasons. I mean, the guy's an excellent distributor of the puck. He's very smart. He's a guy who's able to create time and space for himself. So that's something I'm going to be interested to see. Like, could we see Perfetti? Could we see a 5-forward power play possibly? Could we see Perfetti playing the Morrissey spot on the top power play
6
unit?
Forwards, they're going to pull the goalie. It's just going to be sheer chaos at all times.
But the way I look at it, like, yes, Morrissey's your top defenseman. Nobody's disputing that. Why not put Colin Miller out there? Like, from what I've seen from Colin Miller, I realize this is preseason, but this guy has a big bomb of a shot. And not only does he have a big bomb of a shot, he's a smart player. I mean, he can whip that puck around to those forwards, whether it's Scheifele or Connor or Ehlers or Velarde. So I definitely want to see more Miller, most likely on the second power play unit. Let's be honest, guys. More top dog. But I'd like to see more of Miller on the second pair, and I'd like to see more of Perfetti on the top unit.
Okay, as he's already revamping the new look units even before they've had any game action. I like that kind of bold strokes.
I can't say who yet, but there's a bold prediction that Colin Miller is going to score from a member of the media that I have on recording, that he's going to score a lot of goals this season. So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But I think that the key, Drew, is, and we saw it last night a little bit, and I know that we're not going to draw too much from last night, but Nikita Chibrikov did score a beautiful goal on the power play set up by that elite vision, as Trini KP mentions, that Cole Perfetti set up, pulls the puck and then sets up Chibrikov. And then the first goal, who scored the first goal? Who scored the first goal last night? Anyone who actually watched that game? I know everybody was watching.
I was on family time at that point. I'm afraid.
Oh, Perfetti scored the first one on
there
the
you
power
go.
play. Sorry. So they did get a few power play goals last night in Minnesota. They scored a lot of goals. They also gave up a lot of goals. But no, I mean, the key for this special teams, and we talked about it all last year, was you just can't be a good team. You can't be a Stanley Cup contending team and have a bottom 10 special teams, like both PK and power play, or if it's going to be at least have one that's elite and then have one that's average. And look, the Oilers, as we all know, and everyone can point to it and say, look what the Oilers did. Their PK was I don't remember where they averaged in during the season. I don't think it was particular. I think it was middle of the pack, maybe in the season. And then they were elite in the Stanley Cup Finals. They gave up like 4 power play goals in all those games. So they went from good to incredible, and that's fantastic. But this cost them games last year, and this team doesn't have the same latitude to lose games as last year's team did, because there's a thinner line, I think, in terms of that. Even though they have some guys who can step up, the depth may not be there for them in terms of the elite player, right? So from that perspective, you have to make sure that you're taking points when you can get them, and the special teams cost you points last year. So in that vein, you need Nikolai Ehlers and that unit to develop. And the one thing I think that they're going to maybe have to be cautious about is almost overpassing. You almost need someone to be the hog, and you need a guy to just really willing to take that shot, because there are a couple of, again, I'm just talking about the game I watched live, which was that Oilers game, and acknowledging that they were playing the Bakersfield Condors, not the Edmonton Oilers. But at the same time, there was almost like too much. Here you go. It's like, get that puck to the front of the net and put that puck home. And that's what like I said, that's what we saw yesterday with the Perfetti being in the right place, putting the puck home. That's what you need. And so that's the only thing I'd be cautious about, is like each guy wants to like not be the selfish guy on that line. And you need someone to be like, listen, I'm going to take the puck, I'm going to shoot it, and then we're going to create a rebound if I don't score. So we'll see if they can deliver. But yeah, I mean, again, it's about movement. And Nikolai Ehlers, what do we talk about when you talk about Nikolai Ehlers? He's all about movement. He's all about creating. And I think so he's innovative. And especially when they have that advantage, that's where a guy like that can really stand out.
Well, what I like about the idea, and what I like about the conversation this week around the power play in particular, was that talk about movement. And go where your opponent isn't. If you're standing still, it's pretty easy to cover a guy who's standing still, or everything has to be so absolutely perfect to succeed if it's a stationary power play unit. Yes, you have an extra guy on the ice, but these teams know how to schematically draw up to sort of reduce that advantage if you're just standing still. By the sounds of everything, it's going to feature a lot more movement of the puck and movement of the players themselves. So all of a sudden, if a guy is in position A and he's being covered by a defenseman, but he's quickly bouncing between position B and position C, it makes it that much more challenging for the opponent, and it should open up that many more passing lanes or shooting lanes as a result. That, to me, is going to be the most intriguing factor about this Jets power play, is seeing how they use that movement and seeing how they sort of incorporate that movement into their success factor. Ehlers might be in the bumper spot, but I don't necessarily expect that he's going to be in the bumper spot all the time for an entire power play opportunity. He can just as easily shift from the bumper spot to the half wall, and Scheifele can go there. I just think they have more options with how they're designing this power play, and as a result, they're going to have that more movement incorporated, which should being the operative word, create better results than they saw last year.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, we've talked a lot about the movement and not being predictable and causing odd man situations, taking advantage of the odd man down low. But at the end of the day, guys, like, there's so many guys that can shoot the puck well, and there's so many guys that can distribute the puck well, that it's kind of, at this point, you need to find, like, what is your go-to scheme? Like, what is your go-to play on the power play? We've talked about it a lot. The good power plays in the NHL, they score early in a power play. They don't wait. Like, sometimes, we've seen this, and it was mentioned, I think, by both Drew and Dave, that you just see looking too much for the perfect pass, and you don't want to see that from a successful power play. You want to see 3 or 4 passes shot, get the rebound, do it again. Like, I want to see more shots for sure from this power play, But just getting away from the power play for a second, like I'm much less concerned about the power play as I am with the penalty kill, because Dave mentioned it lost them games last year. They lost the series against the Avalanche because of their penalty kill. Remember, guys, they were up 2-1 in game 3. The series was tied 1-1, and they were up game 3. We were at Boston Pizza Taylor, and the Jets went up 2-1. And then what happened? There were the penalties, right? I seem to remember there was a double minor. Was that Gabe Velarde that took a double minor, I think, for high sticking, if I'm not mistaken, right? So like it was the penalty kill in that Avalanche series. The Avalanche, it was an absolute holiday for them every time they had a power play, right? So for me, the penalty kill's got to be better. And that's why I don't necessarily know that Scheifele and Connor killing penalties is going to solve that. That's why I agree with Jacob Stoller, who we just had on. I think I'm going to be curious to see how long that lasts, if both of those guys are killing penalties just to begin the season, or if we see that throughout the season.
Well, so let's talk about that. So, we know that there's the new coach in charge of the Jets penalty kill. And we know that he liked to coin the term power kill when he was the coach in Toronto. And I believe that before that in Carolina. And so this thought, I mean, nobody has ever considered really Scheifele and Connor as penalty killers. And nobody has really considered that as an avenue for the Winnipeg Jets to explore as maybe an opportunity for the team to benefit from.
We saw it a little bit under Paul Maurice, but not much under Rick Bowness.
Right, but was it even both Connor and Scheifele together? I thought it was Connor without Scheifele.
But it was like Connor with like Appleton, if I were.
Yeah, like I remember Connor being out there a bit, and he had some shorthanded goals. I'd have to go back and really check the numbers to see exactly how much. But like I said, when we were interviewing Jacob in the last segment, these aren't guys who have a defensive consciousness. That's been the biggest bugaboo about both of them. Is Scheifele got better a little bit last year, and Connor certainly was very similar to what he's been, which is not a Selke Award winner by any stretch of the imagination. So is this being too cute by half from the Jets' perspective, putting them out there as penalty killers? Are there better options, or is this the Jets just maybe throwing something at the wall early in the year or in training camp to see if maybe they get some found money as a result?
Well, I mean, they're hoping that they'll be able to knock pucks down and maybe turn it into some offense. Now, Scott Arniel was quick to say when he was talking to us about it, and he was asked about it a few days ago, he said, well, look, I want them to be thinking defense first. It can't all be about offense, but I think that's part of the appeal, and that you see teams employ that. And I suspect, again, with the Jets, like, there's a method behind this. It's not like they're just saying to just kind of take away from what you just said and throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. I suspect what they've done, at least that's what you would hope they've done, is that they've spent time over the summer, and obviously with the new coaching staff, to look at what other teams have done effectively and use guys. I mean, think about Dallas, right? Tyler Seguin, I believe, PKs. I think Jamie Benn is on the PK. So you have skilled guys who go on the PK for teams. Again, don't quote me on that, but I think I read that. So my point I'm making is that you would think that the team has watched what other teams have successfully done, the top 5 PK teams. What have they done? Who have they employed in those roles, Ezzy? And you think, okay, if they've been able to incorporate those players. And look, you're not married to a system. If the system isn't working, if you try Scheifele and Connor and it doesn't work, I think Connor could work, maybe not with Scheifele, like it as that duo. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they obviously have chemistry. They obviously connect.
I like Lowry and Connor much better myself.
Sure. I mean, but my point is that, like, I don't know that those two stick necessarily if you want to maybe intermingle them with other guys at Drew. But to me, I would suspect, and again, I can ask the question of the coaching staff when we reconvene with them starting again tomorrow, is there something they saw in other effective penalty killing units that leads them to believe that employing this duo will lead to success for their team? Because you have to, again, right now it's an assumption. I don't know it, so I can ask the question to get everybody a more informed answer for next week or on our YouTube channel. By the way, pretty much the only place you can get every single interview with Jets players and the coaching staff is on our YouTube. Just to be clear, we're the number one source. The Jets also post it, but even the Jets aren't doing all the interviews, as you noticed a couple days ago. So make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you're watching us, you're probably on YouTube, but make sure you're subscribing because that's where you're getting most of those
That
interviews.
one-on-one with Simon Lundmark, chef's kiss. Mwah.
To your point, though, Dave, Sagan and Ben, Tyler Sagan last year, minute 5 time on ice per game, shorthanded, and Jamie Benn just a bit behind him at 59 seconds. So those guys are playing, some shorthanded opportunities in the course of a game last year. So to the guys you would think are more offensively inclined, Wyatt Johnson, also an offensively inclined guy for the Dallas Stars.
Those guys are not offensively inclined. Those are good defensive forwards. Like that's the problem that I have with this. I agree with Dave. This is not set in stone. I just have, look, we've been doing the show too long for me to just think Scheifele and Connor are going to be great penalty killers. I'm just not sold on that. I could be wrong about this. Look, I mean, Scott Arniel, Dean Chenoweth, I mean, these guys know obviously a lot more than I do. So they know, they think that there's a potential this can work, right? I'm just not sold on these guys. Like, look, Adam Lowry is an excellent penalty killer. Mason Appleton is an excellent penalty killer. We talked about Morgan Barron, Alex Iafallo, David Gustafson. Like, don't you want to let those guys kill your penalties? Like, and also if your guys are out there, in theory, that means that they're not going to be able to jump over the boards after the penalty's over, right? So in theory, that would mean more time for the Ehlers, Perfetti, Nemesnikov line. That's been pointed out, right? We're just having the conversation now, and this is not a knock on Scheifele or Connor. I just don't see them excelling on the PK. That's just me.
Look, it's a concept, an idea that hasn't really been tested significantly here before. And it very well could blow up in the Winnipeg Jets' face. But I'll give it time because training camp is, I think, a time to sort of try things and maybe experiment with things a little bit that you wouldn't necessarily do mid-season. You're not going to all of a sudden, I think, start this idea mid-season. I think you're willing to give it a shot at this point. You're entirely right. Look, Lowry and Appleton are still the first choice to go over the boards. But I think it just shows the idea that this is what we're talking about shows the change in philosophy from the Jets' perspective over how they're viewing penalty kills. That penalty kills aren't a thing just to survive them anymore. They're a thing and rely on Connor Hellebuyck to be your top penalty killer, as the goaltender always is. It changes the philosophy and shows the maybe more aggressive mindset that the Jets are going to employ when it comes to the penalty kill. I mean, think about it for the last couple of years, guys. How often did we talk about, we talked about the Jets power play being stationary, but we talked about the Jets penalty kill being so unbelievably passive that it almost was a huge detriment to the success. You were just letting the other team sort of do what they wanted when it came to setting up and moving the puck around, that you were just almost pylons out there by and large. So
the Jets had a lot of problem on controlled entries. Sorry to get too technical here, but that was a big issue, especially in the Avalanche series. If you want to talk about that series, like the Avalanche were just their controlled entries, and basically that just means their ability to get into the offensive zone and maintain possession of the puck. That's essentially what that means. It was much too easy for the Jets PK. And I'm a big believer in guys like Lowry and Appleton and their ability to kill penalties. And obviously, Dylan DeMello is a big penalty killer. You're going to see Dylan Samberg kill penalties even more, right? You're going to see, I imagine you're going to see Hayden Fleury out there for the Jets with no Stanley in the lineup, right? Well, obviously no Heinola either, but I think you would expect to see Logan Stanley kill some penalties if he was in the Jets' top 6, right? So you're absolutely right, Drew. They've got to be sharper, and that's the thing. That's why you bring in a new coaching staff, right? Right. Dave, and you just mentioned it, right? They're thinking outside the box here. Scheifele and Connor on the PK for this team is outside the box. Using Nick Ehlers in the bumper position on the power play is outside of the box because usually Ehlers is just kind of use that speed at the blue line, and you've seen him shoot that puck from the top of the circle, right? So that's what I do like. I do like to see that. I just think that the Jets have a lot of good defensive forwards that can excel on the power play. Pardon me, the penalty kill over Scheifele and Connor. But look, the reality is, if we can just bring it back home here, the special teams have to be better, because when you think about the Jets being a 110-point team last year with a bottom third power play and a bottom third PK, I mean, they could have been 115 or 117 point team. They could have won the President's Trophy if they had, like,
there was probably half a dozen games last year where we talked about the special teams being the reason why the Jets ended up on the wrong side of the ledger. I mean, I can't, I remember if you go back and watch the old post-game shows, I think we probably said that about half a dozen times, Dave, that it was the special teams that cost the Winnipeg Jets. And it wasn't just us, but it was also the coaching staff that would have said such.
Yeah, there's no question about it, which is what we talked about to kind of kick off this segment, was that they just can't afford to have special teams the way they were. And now they're willing to change some things up. So you have to, like, it's hard to, like, if you think about it, we haven't even seen it and we're already poo-pooing it, right? You have to see what it does. I mean, folks, it may surprise you. I have no idea. I can't tell you, because it's the reason why we watch hockey games, right? Like, it's funny whenever we do predictions or whenever you see guys come out with this is what's going to happen this season. It's like, well, then there's no point in watching the season because you already have you've laid it out. This is what's going to happen. And
the Jets will have 104 points, Dave. Just put it in the books, and we don't even have to play the games.
Yeah. But so
do we still get paid to do the post-game shows if the season's already
we're just going to have stick simulated? We'll just have stick figures. We'll have like that robot post-game show.
The claymation version of Illegal Curve starts now.
Yeah, we're already claymation. But anyways, the point is that, you have to see it. You have to see the experiment before you can judge it. So we'll see what the experiment looks like. And again, there's a few more exhibition games in the preseason. So we'll continue to see it. And then we'll see it. We'll judge it after 10 games into the regular season, right? As we'll say, this is either working or it's not working. And if it's not working, then, okay, you tried, just again, I guess if we're having this conversation right now, given the way the Jets PK and power play looked last season, would folks be really happy if the Jets were trying the exact same thing and being like, well, let's try it this year, because this year we should have success with it? No, the whole point is they're trying different things. And so it's hard to kind of to pillory them if we haven't really seen them in action. And again, as folks in the chat know very well, but I'm just going to point this out again, when you're watching NHL lineups versus AHL, like the lineup we saw against the Oilers very much looked like the Jets NHL lineup. Right. And even that was still absent some players. My point is that when you see NHL versus NHL, which you're going to see in the last few games of the preseason, the games against Calgary, that's when you're much more likely to see NHL rosters. And I think once you get that, then you start to see, okay, how does this work? How does it work? Doesn't it work? But again, ultimately, my caution would be, let's see what it looks like 10 games into the regular season sometime in November, boys. And then we could be having a real conversation about whether this works or not. But it's just hard to judge something before you've really even seen it played out.
My prediction is you're going to see this a little bit at the beginning of the season, and then you're not going to see it much after that. That's my prediction.
Possibly.
So all of a sudden, the guy who was half full and it was all sunshine and rainbows earlier. Now negative.
Scheifele and Connor. I mean, like, they're your number one offensive line. Like, these are two of your best offensive players.
I'm not just talking strictly about 55 and 81 as on the PK. I'm talking in general special teams changes. But that, I mean, that is
for
one
sure.
of them.
For sure. There's going to be some systematic changes for sure to the PK and the power play. That's just going to happen when you have a new coaching staff, right?
Right.
And I'm with Drew. I'm interested to see if it works. I'm just skeptical. And again, you guys know I'm a glass half full guy when it comes to the Jets and in life in general. I just don't I'm a strong believer of, like, put players in a position to succeed, use players' strengths, right? And killing penalties just isn't Scheifele and Connor's strength. That's all I'm saying.
It'll be an interesting experiment. We'll cover it in its entirety, of course, on illegalcurve.com. And of course, once the season starts on October the 9th, so in a little bit more than about 10 days away or so, the Illegal Curve post-game show returns for all 82 regular season games, plus the playoffs. That Wednesday, October 9th, mark it in your calendar. The season opener will be live at our home away from home, Boston Pizza, on Taylor Avenue, the Illegal Curve watch party, and then the live on location edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Drew can already taste the fish bowls.
Oh, you know me. I'm a big fan of the fish bowls. We'll be there Wednesday, October 9th for the Jets and the Oilers. And then, of course, all throughout the season. And as we mentioned last week on the program, a new monthly appearance at lunch hour with our friends downtown at City Place, 333 St. Mary Avenue. We had so much fun being there during the postseason that will be back there again during the regular season. More details on that still to come. When we return, the Jets are going to face the Calgary Flames 3 times in the month of October. We head to Calgary to talk to Danny Austin of the Calgary Herald about what's going on in Calgary with the Flames. Much more to come on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on a Saturday morning. Bottom of hour number 2. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and we're thrilled to welcome to the program from the Calgary Herald in Calgary, Danny Austin joins us on the show to talk about the Flames. Danny, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things in Calgary?
Things are good, guys. Yeah, I'm hanging out. I got some coffee. Life's good talking to you guys. So I got no complaints over my way.
Beautiful. Life's good on a Saturday morning. Danny, the Jets and the Flames, they'll meet 3 times in the course of the month of October. 2 of those preseason, of course, but a regular season matchup coming up as well next month. You know, to me, you look at the Flames, and you can't help but go back to last year, which was, I think, fair to say, an unexpected result for where the Flames thought that they were heading. And now they're in this state of uncertainty is how I would describe it. I guess my initial question to you would be about the Flames, sort of, where is this team heading right now? They have veteran guys that, you know, especially a Mackenzie Weegar would be attractive to a lot of teams around the league. Nazem Kadri had a great year last year, stats-wise. They were trying to incorporate these younger guys, but where is this team really heading at the start of the 24-25 season?
I mean, I think you have to go back to sort of right before the draft in 2023. So 15, 16 months ago, which is when Craig Conroy took over, and he had 7 unrestricted free agents. He had to trade away Tyler Toffoli because they just knew that they weren't going to be able to make that work. You traded away since then Nikita Zadorov, Noah Hannafin, Elias Lindholm, Chris Tanev. I'm probably missing one in there. But, you know, they smartly made the move, in my opinion. I got to give Craig Conroy a lot of credit. But they looked and they said, all right, we're not going to be able to sign all these guys. Even if we do, we haven't made the playoffs in a couple of years, certainly since they traded Chuck and Gaudreau, and we're getting older. So it's time to get younger. So they won't use the word rebuild, but like I will. They're doing a rebuild, and it was interesting. That sort of would have led me prior to camp to coming in and saying this is going to be a bottom 3 team in the NHL. I was wrong. Like they're better than that. They signed guys like Ryan Lomberg, like Anthony Mantha, Jake Bean, like proven NHL veterans who could come in. But I still don't think they're that bad. They're not the San Jose Sharks. You know, like I don't think they're going to be competing for the worst. But the reality is they are. They drafted Zane Parekh, who they sent back like yesterday, literally. They're getting younger. The future of this franchise relies on getting a number 1 center in the draft, and we're not there yet. So until they get that player, they're probably still on the downswing a little bit. But conversely, so I'm not being super negative, the vibes are so much better this year. Like, it's so much like the guys are just not aware that 5 of their teammates are going to be traded away in the next 6 months. So like they just don't, and they don't hate us for asking every day how they're feeling about that. Like it's a better scenario. And I think people understood why what happened. I think it was the right move, and they're building a little bit. So where are they? They're probably, they're not probably, like I don't think they're making the playoffs, but I also don't think, like, I've said this once or twice before. Like, if you're not going to be good, be fun. And I think the Flames have the potential to be fun.
Absolutely. And Danny, by the way, I want to ask you if you've read all of the books behind you, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you've read every single one of those books. There's hundreds of them behind you.
Thanks. I have another bookshelf. Like I'm an English literature major, like
right on.
Book reading when it's not sitting on patios drinking beer and then being too hungover to read. I do like reading. I don't play video games other than FIFA and stuff, so that's kind of what I do with my free time. But yes, I have another bookshelf that is my unread books that I have to get to, and it causes an incredible amount of anxiety.
As his bookshelf is populated just the same, but they're actually pop-up books. So, he's really getting through those pop-up
so
books.
So are some of these guys.
No, that's not true. I can talk to you about Kurt Vonnegut or Hunter S. Thompson or something like that. I like to read books as well.
Fear and Loathing in Winnipeg means something totally different than anywhere else.
No, but I wanted to ask you about the goaltending because obviously, I mean, Jacob Markstrom, it felt like for, I don't know, a year or 2 years that he was destined to be traded to the New Jersey Devils. So I think you would agree that's part of the rebuild here. But I wanted to specifically ask you about Dustin Wolf because obviously his numbers in the American Hockey League, Dave Benu covers the American Hockey League here for us on Illegal Curve. And I mean, it seemed like he was the goaltender in waiting forever. In training camp, has he taken that job? Or is it still kind of going to be a situation where he's going to split the net with Dan Vladar?
I expect there was no flat out winning the job for either of those guys. Like, I don't think we're looking at one guy playing like Jacob Markstrom would play when healthy. You'd have to drag him out of the net. He wanted to play every game. So I don't think you have that. And like, that's actually a really, really nice position to be in with a young goalie where like, if he gets 30 or 35 games, that's still a substantial step up in terms of NHL playing time compared to anything he's done before. So I suspect you'll probably see this year them do that, sort of ramp Dustin Wolf up while giving Dan Vladar the chance. Because like the reality is you don't actually know what you have in either at the NHL level. There's no reason to doubt Dustin Wolf. He was goalie of the year at the work, like in the Dub. He was goaltender of the year twice in the AHL. Like he's proven he can adapt, but also like this is the NHL. We've seen lots of great players at the AHL level who can't quite make it translate, and he is slightly undersized compared to, most modern goalies. But I think that the goal by the end of the year, it's not the end of training camp, is to know which one of those guys is your starter and if they're your backup. Because they also got a guy named Devin Cooley from San Jose who will likely sort of be largely playing with the Wranglers. But I probably think you want to get a look at him, see if he could be the backup. So this is the nice thing about whether you want to call it a rebuild or a retool or whatever you want. This year you can sort of use just to not throw those guys to the Wolves, but yeah, I don't know why I'm resisting saying that. You can throw those guys to the Wolves and see how they do.
Danny, last time I was in Calgary at the Saddle Dome, it was 2004 Game 6, and I still contend that goal by Jelena went in the net. But regardless of that, there's a new arena coming down the pipe for folks in Calgary. What's the excitement level like with that? And I think it was 2027 when it's supposed to be done. So, but is it creating a lot of excitement because there is, a lot more possibility when you have a new arena, coming to the town?
So, like, there are different answers for this. Like, if I was in Calgary, I couldn't divorce this conversation from the fact that we also have just, like, a major transit line that just got canceled and that they've wasted hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars, and everyone's very confused about why that isn't getting built. Like, there's always politics to arena things. Look, we just saw the Oakland A's play their last game based on some shenanigans. I think everyone knows that, like, whatever you want to say about the public money, Calgary needs a new arena, and in this city, everything is measured. Well, not everything. Edmonton measures itself against us more than we measure ourselves against them. But them having the nicest arena in the league and us having, a bit, I'm not going to say it's a dump, but it's an aging arena is not cool. So I do think it's going to be, on a civic level, it's going to be transformative for that area of downtown. And it's going to bring a bunch of sort of development to the Stampede grounds, which I personally, as someone who grew up, in a big city and likes big cities, I think it's going to actually really help Calgary grow. And then honestly, the design is amazing. And I just think if this team can be good by 2027, and they don't have to be Stanley Cup contenders, but give you something to cheer about, that building is going to be amazing. So it's we desperately need it. We arguably need a new CFL stadium even more, but that's not happening. So the Stampeders just have to live with what they have. But it's it's going to be amazing. There's actually, the second you divorce yourself from the honestly never-ending argument about how much public money should go towards these things, you realize that having a new stadium and a new arena is always great.
But aren't you going to miss the walk, the walk across the catwalk to the press box?
No. I have an affection for the Dome. I'll be honest with you, my main concern right now is that there's a giant hole with construction being done right next to the Saddle Dome. So getting in and out, it's fine for practices, but game time is a mess. So I have a very short-term view of make my life easier somehow. But yeah, there are some charming things about the Dome. And I will say that when you get that playoff atmosphere, the Dome is still, it's an incredible place to be. If you were there for Game 6, like when Johnny scored in Game 7 in overtime to get the, I'm from Toronto. I have been for some big shots, some big goals, some big home runs, like nothing compared to just like the mania that you felt in that rink. So I think, and to be honest, the design is cool. Like it's a cool building. It's just that, you know, it would be nice if you didn't have to wait as long in line for the washrooms and things like that.
That would be a very nice little feature to have. Moving back onto the ice, Danny Austin, the Calgary Herald, our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. Jonathan Huberdeau, I mean, he was the, you know, along with Mackenzie Weegar, he was the big name, the big ticket in the Matthew Tkachuk trade a couple years ago, and things haven't worked out as intended, and I think I'm being polite when I say that. You know, how do the Flames get the best out of Jonathan Huberdeau at this point? Forget about almost the salary to some extent. He's getting paid what he's getting paid. How do the Flames get the most out of him at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting $10.5 million of value out of that player. Like I'd be a little more careful on Calgary radio, but like, it's not going to be a good contract. Like it's not going to be a contract where you're ever looking and saying, wow, they got a steal at $10.5 million. I mean, you got what, 52 points last year, 55 the year before. So I think that, to your point, the question that you begin to ask is, what is the best out of Jonathan Huberdeau? Like what is a reasonable expectation? I mean, is 70 points? Like I think after the last 2 seasons, you'd be thrilled with 70 points. So they try different line mates. You know, they basically brought Anthony Mantha in this year because there's a French connection there, and they view Mantha as a guy who can score. Although Mantha, it's not like he's ever gotten 40 goals. And they've looked pretty good together in camp. But I'll be honest that it's sort of, to me, and this is purely opinion, like this is not something that comes from the Flames. It feels like there's everything else going on that they're trying to sort of build and get younger. They're putting Connor Zary, who had a great first season last year. They're putting him with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman, two established veterans who have that, you know, two-way game. So a guy like Zary who came in and looked pretty good, he's now going to learn from those guys. Like, you know, you'll see Matthew Coronado at some point. I think Sam Honzek, who was the first-round pick of 2023. You have all this stuff happening, and then you have the Jonathan Huberdeau line. Like, it's almost completely not divorced. And I will say that, like, he has, I know for a fact, like, he has great relationships with guys in the room. Like, it's Jonathan Huberdeau, despite obviously his numbers not being what you want, like, he is not a problem as a person in Calgary at all. He's well liked, he works hard, all that. He's just lost his game, and like, I don't know if it's fair to call it the yips. Like, I don't know what it is, but the reality is, like, I think that the most you could expect from him is 70 points, which says a lot. So how do you get the best of him? You throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. But let's be honest, that the best is not going to be 115 points a game.
Danny, I wanted to ask you about Igor Sharangovich, because obviously, you know, he signed a massive deal in the offseason. And, you know, I admit I'm a Devils fan, so I'm familiar with him, watching him play for the Devils. And you know, he scored 24 goals for the Devils one year. And I saw you tweeting, follow you on Twitter, obviously, or X. And I saw you tweeting about, you know, Igor scoring a goal in preseason. But I guess, first off, what did you think of that contract? Because I think a lot of people saw that and said, you know, $5.75 million a year for Sharangovich. But, you know, he had one of the quieter, great offensive seasons last year, right? Like 31 goals, 59 points. And you don't really hear a lot of talk about him around the NHL. So what did you just think of that signing? And just overall, I'm assuming they're going to be expecting even more from him this year on the Flames.
Yeah, like a couple things. Like, first of all, like, he had a really productive season, and most of that productivity came after the first 15 games. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like, he was put on the fourth line at one point. Like, they did not know how to best utilize him or figure him out, but he really came into his own. Like, he's fun to watch, and he is not just he's not just, you know, a scoring winger. He does things on both ends of the ice. He is the quietest, shyest, like, nicest human you've ever met. Like, you just don't understand how this guy is a hockey player on some level, because, like, he's not rude to the media. He just doesn't, like, really, like, he's just kind of quiet, wants to play Lego and do all of it. But like, I honestly love covering him. He's super fun to watch. And I mean, the advantage, like, let's be honest, the Flames have $20-odd something million in cap space. So if you have a guy who comes in and that's their selling point, that's, they traded a guy named Kevin Ball, defenseman in his mid-20s, played 82 games for the Devils last year. That's who they got back from Markstrom. And the reality is, you're selling these guys on opportunity. You're probably not selling them on cup contention, but hey, come in, do what Yegor did, become a part of this franchise and a part of the fabric of the culture. And there's going to be money out there for you. That is the selling point of the Calgary Flames right now. And Yegor is, I'm sure when they go talk to agents, that's what Yegor is the guy they're showing. So, yeah, you're right. Everything about him, I don't know that he's going to emerge into, I don't think he's Connor McDavid, but Belarusian. I just think he's legitimately a relatively, I don't know what happened exactly. I mean, I've read, Yegor getting basically cut from the lineup in the playoffs, stuff like that. But he was young and figuring out the North American game. And what you want to do is kind of hit those home runs. And with respect to Tyler Toffoli, who I think is a great player, the Flames flat out won that trade. They traded for a younger guy. I think that if you look at their productivity last year, it's basically identical. Toffoli got bounced around. Yegor became a player who you extended for 5 more years. That's a flat out win by Craig Conroy. So
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Danny, 10 years ago, the Jets organization made the decision to move the AHL franchise from St. John's to Manitoba, and the Manitoba Moose were reborn. And it's been great for us because, to be able to cover prospects and you get a lot more insight having the team in your same city. Calgary, of course, moved Stockton during the COVID year, and then they came up to Calgary and played in that all-Canadian division, which was probably one of the most unique seasons in the history of hockey. But I just curious, now that you've had the Wranglers back for a couple of seasons, what's it been like having the Flames prospects from your perspective, from the organization's perspective, all in one city?
Great. I mean, I will say that from a media perspective, it makes my job so much easier. It doesn't have to be I'm at the Saddle Dome a lot, so I'm going to be honest with you that I'm not 2-3 times a week popping down to watch an extra hockey game. I'm often do anything other than that. But a guy Matthew Coronado, who was a 2022 first round pick, came out of camp last year, won a spot with the Flames, and then really struggled. And from a media perspective, that becomes the narrative. But then being able to go watch him dominate at the AHL level and realize that, okay, there's some tweaks you need to make to play in the NHL, but I can see you. I can actually you are not a bust. All of that, that's incredibly valuable because you don't get stuck in narratives. I think it's building. I think that the reality is there are obviously the WHL team also plays out of the Dome, so you're building in terms of the fan base. But what's going to help with that is, as we've said, this team is now. Remember that 2 years ago, they had Gaudreau and Tkachuk and Monahan, and we're not they were a team that traded away their picks to get to strengthen. So right now we're in. I remember a year ago talking about is there a single young defenseman in this system who can actually play at the NHL level? And now it feels like there's 8, and there's not enough room for them on the Wranglers roster over the next couple of years. So I think that as fans, I can tell you that the engagement on my stories is much higher for focus on the young players than it is on the veterans. Mm-hmm. And I do think that as that happens to the Wranglers, I mean, people are going to be going to, you're going to see some really big crowds, and it's a blast. And, there's a part of me, obviously they have deals with the WHL sort of cities that you won't move your AHL teams. I would love to see Flames or Oilers have a team in Medicine Hat or Red Deer, so that fans outside of our market could also get to go see them. But that's not happening. And as of now, I'm not complaining. It's great.
Danny, we'll let you go on this last one. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask it. The Gaudreau brothers and their tragic passing was felt all across the hockey world, but particularly so in Calgary, where Johnny performed his craft so well for so many years. And we saw the outpouring of emotion in Calgary upon that tragedy. I mean, how resonant was his time in Calgary and still the impact of that tragedy that was really only a few weeks ago? Is it still sort of palpable, the loss that is being felt in the city of Calgary?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know sort of how it is, right? Obviously for that first sort of week and a half or until the funeral, it was honestly it dominated every conversation you had, even with non-hockey fans. It was just extremely emotional. And there's I don't know, maybe this is me coming up with a narrative that's not true. But like, there's something different when a player is not the number 1 overall pick, when it's a guy who is undersized, who you picked. Like, I feel like Calgary really felt like Johnny was one of our own, which is why it hurt, obviously, when he left. But like, I've been in a lot of rinks when a superstar has signed in free agency, or like, when I say rinks, like, I'm also like a Raptors fan. Like, my parents, the greatest gift they ever got me was for Vince Carter's first game back, and his jersey should not be being retired, by the way. And like, I've seen some angry boos with Johnny. Like, the boos weren't angry, like, they were sad. They were like, man, we wish he'd stayed. And like, Tkachuk got it worse than Gaudreau did, and Tkachuk allowed them to make a trade. Like, if you actually look at it from a hockey sense, Tkachuk's departure was less harmful than Gaudreau's. But yeah, so but like, that is a story that I don't know many stories like it. Like, I woke up, my mom was here, so I was sleeping. Like, I got a 1-bedroom. I was sleeping on an air mattress. My mom was like, "You need to get up. Something's happened." And I looked, and like, every sentence made it more sad, right? Like, it was impossible not to be moved by it. And then on some level, it made you more angry because it was just such an avoidable tragedy. But for me, I mean, again, I've lived here for 14 years. Calgary is home. I love particularly like the core of this city, like the downtown core and the area surrounding. And like, it made me very proud seeing, like, there was no hesitation. It was organic. It came from the community. It came from hockey fans just needing to kind of gather and be together and pay tribute. And what you heard from all of them was like, we want the Gaudreau family to see this. Like, if there's any comfort to be found in our love and our appreciation, I hope that they can find it. So that's why we're here. And it was deeply moving, and made me very proud of Calgary.
Danny Austin covers the Calgary Flames for the Calgary Herald. We know that you got practice you got to get to, so we'll let you go on that. Thanks so much for joining us this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, and we'll do it again real soon, Danny.
Yeah, guys, this was great. Anytime you want me. Thanks.
We'll
Cheers,
Danny.
Danny.
There he goes, Danny Austin, joining us this morning, really speaking eloquently there at the end about the impact of the loss of Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau, and of course the impact it had on Calgary, where he spent so much time. Of course, there's no easy way to transition back to hockey, but the Flames are, they're a team that's, again, very much in transition, and they're a team that the Jets, when you look at the Western Conference this year, and we talk about the teams that the Jets need to sort of, be better than again in those games and take advantage of a weaker opponent, Calgary certainly counts as that. And they're going to play the 2 preseason games next week, and those don't matter for anything, of course. But then they meet on that Saturday night on home ice here in Winnipeg. I believe let me check. I think it's October the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, the 26th. I got it off by a week. I'm off by a week in everything I do on the show on this Saturday morning. But there you go. The Jets and the Flames, of course, always a good time when the 2 Canadian teams can meet against one another, Ezzy.
Absolutely. And look, this Flames team's not going to be very good this year. I don't think many people are predicting the Flames to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch, and that's what Danny just mentioned, right? Like, if you're going to be bad, be fun. And he mentioned Zane Parekh, right? Like, ask Dave, like, he was one of those defensemen at the 2024 draft that I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I know a lot of people wanted Calgary to get Tija Ginla, but after Tija Ginla went to Utah, I mean, that was another spot that Zane Parekh fell, right? So he had an insane season with Saginaw in the Ontario Hockey League, like 35 goals, 90 points, something like that, right? I have to check the exact numbers. But so I think Flames fans are really excited about Zane Parekh on the back end, but you've still got a lot of talented players there, right? Like, we talked about Huberdeau, we talked about Nazem Kadri, Igor Sharangovich, Blake Coleman. They brought in Anthony Mantha. They brought in Tyson Barrie on the back end. Obviously, Mackenzie Weegar is a defenseman that we really like on this show.
Every team wants to try and get Mackenzie Weegar out of there.
Yeah. So I mean, the goaltending, it's a young tandem with Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar. But I mean, we talked about it with Danny. Dustin Wolf, Dave, AHL goalie of the year, WHL goalie of the year. Yes, he might be undersized. Is there not some similarities between Thomas Milic and Dustin Wolf with, not being good they're good goaltenders, not being big goaltenders, right? Yeah. But guys that just seem to excel at every single level, right? So
and late round picks, because
exactly
Wolf was like a 7th rounder, which is insane, and Milic obviously was a 5th rounder.
5th rounder, yeah. So like, I think the Flames, they're most likely not going to be a playoff team, but I think there's in this rebuild, I think it's going to be interesting to watch them because a guy like Nazem Kadri, is there a good chance that he's going to be traded? this season before the deadline, I mean, yeah, I could see that. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot. Wouldn't the Colorado Avalanche like to have Nazem Kadri back? I realize they have Casey Middlestat there now as their second line center, but I'm just saying, if Nazem Kadri is on the trading block, even at his age, I think there's going to be a lot of suitors for him.
We'd be remiss if we didn't wrap the show by talking about this Kenny's water bottle. Brian Little is going to sign a 1-day contract with the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday, October 20th, the Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So he's going to be honored and be the star of that show on that Sunday, October 20th. And, you know, for a guy who had his career cut short in such a tragic manner, in, you know, taking the shot to the ear and that just abruptly ending his career, he's still, I think, beloved to some extent by the fans in Winnipeg. And then when he waived his no move clause to go to Arizona, I mean, just the paper maneuver that was to get the Jets out of the LTIR situation that they were in, he became even more beloved by fans in Winnipeg. So I think that's going to be a really special afternoon, Dave, on Sunday, October 20th, as we can sort of put a bow on the career officially of Brian Little and salute him for being an underrated member of both the Atlanta Thrashers and the Winnipeg Jets for so long, and being that guy who was sort of, you know, never flashy, never the center of attention, but often the conscience of so many Winnipeg Jets teams.
Yeah, no question about it, Drew. In 9 seasons in Manitoba, of course, as you said, the last one cut short I think he actually wasn't that the year he took the cheap hit in the final exhibition game against the Wild, suffered a concussion, came back, and then, of course, 5 or 7 games played before ultimately taking that shot in the game against the Devils in early November of 2019. So, but really, that's not what he's remembered by, as he's remembered as the guy who scored the first hat trick for the Jets 2.0, which took like 10 seasons basically, but he got the first. Like yeah. And then, so he got the first one, which is probably appropriate. Just a quiet guy who, you know, it's funny how many years, you know, folks tried to plan his replacement, but he still just went out and did great work out on that, in that 2C role. And, you know, since 2019, the Jets have been trying to find a 2C to fill Brian Little's role. They still haven't done it yet. We'll see if they're able to do it, but no, there's no question about it. Folks in Winnipeg love that opportunity to be able to send off a guy like that, give him kind of the recognition he deserves. And you're right, Drew. Look, his career ended early. We talked about it with Mason Appleton. If you didn't see it, it's on YouTube, our YouTube, I should say. But one of the things he talked about was just the fact that he called him a freak of nature, just the fact that he went from, you know, this contact sport where he played at a high level, and then he went and kind of reinvented himself and became this triathlete, and he performs in these triathlons. And so it's a testament to him, the ability to kind of continue that competitive nature and go and compete in another sport, which, you know, again, people generally speaking take, you know, their entire life to get good at. But of course, because he was already in great shape, he was able to kind of convert that over. But again, like I said, he's one of those kind of those big names, Ezzy, that when he first came when the Jets were moved from Atlanta to Winnipeg, he was one of those pieces, right? A first round pick of the Thrashers, had been in Atlanta for 2 or 3 seasons. And then he came to Winnipeg. So a big part of the fabric of the early Jets 2.0.
This just feels right? It just feels right. Brian Little should retire as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. And, you know, you mentioned second line center. He was the first line center when they came over from Atlanta, right? Yeah. And then obviously, you know, moved down. He was a majority the second line center. But I mean, this is a guy who had 4 20-goal seasons for the Jets, right? Like, he put up solid offensive numbers year after year. And yeah, we don't have to rehash it. The way his career ended here in Winnipeg is just not the way, you know, it's just, you don't, that's the worst way to end a career, just going out like that. And, you know, having all the issues with the concussions and the headaches and everything like that with his eye. Right. So this just feels right. And it's good that, you know, this was done. And it's also, you know, should make a note, the game that he's going to be honored is going to be against our good friend Rutger McGroarty.
Yeah, and should mention Braden Yeager scored his first goal for the Winnipeg Jets yesterday, a lightning shot against Marc-Andre Fleury. We expect Yeager will most likely be part of the next round of cuts, but you know, he made an impression. And I have to say, I thought his work at center, winning faceoffs, was really good. Something Kelly Moore asked him about. Again, that interview also available on our YouTube channel. But Yeager, honestly, guys, and I'm not trying to but he looks like a player. I have to say, it's early in his career. He's a 2023 first rounder, but from what I was able to see from him in this training camp, and the one thing I'll impart is I think he built a lot of really good relationships with the veterans. I saw him working after, we would go and they'd skate for an hour and 15, whatever it was. Then we'd go do media. We'd come off out of the Jets room, the Moose room, whatever it was. And Jaeger would be on the ice with Velarde, with Scheifele, working on, learning and creating a relationship with those guys. So I think they've got a really good player in this young kid, and we'll see what he's able to do in a few years. Like I said, my expectation, he's going to go back to Moose Jaw for this season. We'll see if he stays in Moose Jaw. He may get traded, but ultimately, like I said, I think they got a good one in him.
Been a fun Saturday morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to Danny Austin. Big thanks to Jacob Staller for joining us. In case you missed either of those interviews, in case you missed any of the program. Okay, yes.
Sorry, I wouldn't normally do this, but my Baba did celebrate her 97th birthday on Tuesday. So I want to give a shout out to my Baba Shirley, who joined my Zeta Sam, her husband, at 97 years of age. So she's still rolling along, and love her. And I'm glad that she was able to celebrate her 97th. And I'd be remiss to not mention today would have been my Uncle Ray's 69th birthday. So want to mention him as well. But, I was very happy that I was able to celebrate with my Baba and my family basically on Tuesday with her. So that was pretty awesome.
There you go. Absolutely. When you can interrupt me when you're acknowledging a 97th birthday, no question about that. In case you missed any of the program, the immediate replay on the YouTube channel, the podcast will be available shortly as well. Big thanks to all of our sponsors. Play Now is the title sponsor of our programs. Don't bet on illegal sites. Bet with Play Now instead. Manitoba's local, legal, and secure gambling site, 18+. Enjoy responsibly. I was on Play Now last night betting on the Bombers -3.5. I won that bet, in case you didn't already. The Bombers scored another touchdown. They just scored again. So there you go.
6 passing touchdowns for Coleros. Right. I think ties a record, by the way.
There you not a record for maybe Coleros. I thought he had 7 in his career. Might have been his career high. But maybe it was 6.
No. I'm pretty sure I saw Jeff Hamilton say it was 6 was his career high.
Okay, I could be wrong. I think maybe he was 7 yards away from his career, his most passing yards in a game. Again, I'm getting things confused just by 7 days, 7 yards, 7 everything is a little bit confusing.
As a Bombers fan watching that game yesterday, that was just beautiful to see. Touchdown after touch. Brady Oliveira's touchdown was just like he's an absolute freak. Like Oliveira, just give him the MOP right now.
More importantly, people should be like Walt. Subscribe.
There you go. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you, Walt. Big thanks to all the sponsors: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, our friends at City Place, Tough Ducks, and Seagrams. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. The YouTube channel, the website, that's your destination for all your latest Winnipeg Jets news, audio, video, interviews, everything from training camp and the preseason. We'll be back next Saturday, 9 a.m. with another edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, if you haven't already done so, smash the like button. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.